What do you have to say to them of where they can start and how they can start making an impact?
I think a lot of younger people need humility first and foremost. I think being humble, humility to other people is the number one thing because,
Welcome everybody to another episode of Facts Over Feelings. We are still here at Turning Point USA, the biggest America Fest ever, with over 20,000 people that are going to be here with just incredible speakers. We got the big guy, Donald Trump, coming in, Donald Trump Jr., Tucker Carlson, so many different people at this event. It's been amazing so far, but what I'm excited for is our next interview that we have here. So we're actually bringing on a very special guest. We got Mr. Carson Carpenter. And he's going to go into some details, tell him a little bit about himself, but he's been really moving and shaking in the political arena. Carson, welcome to the show. And maybe if you could tell the guests a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and what we like everybody to start out with after you give your introduction is your American dream story and what it means to you.
Absolutely. Well, my name's Carson Carpenter. I'm a 19-year-old, political activist and entrepreneur as well. I led the College Republicans at ASU as a national committeeman for the College Republicans of America during this last election. And I think we had a very big part in playing to why Generation Z went 18 points closer to President Trump than Kamala Harris in this election. And I'm from a small town in Prescott, Arizona. I've worked for 2 congressmen. I've worked for a Senate candidate, and then President Trump's campaign in 2020. And then I helped out a lot in 2024 and had the honor of the president, the 45th and the 47th president, to shout me out at my college campus at Arizona State University, hosting his first college rally of this election cycle out there.
I love it. So how did that happen? How did he shout? Yeah, because not everybody gets shouted out by the Donald Trump. So
yeah.
What did that look like?
Absolutely. Well, we did a lot of efforts on campus. We had a, Turning Point, Charlie Kirk out a lot as well with their Turning Point chapter. So we were making waves with a lot of the younger students, the fraternity and sorority students out there. And I, was pleasure to lead a lot of those students to do a lot of those good things. And I think someone backstage definitely told President Trump about me, and he gave out his list of endorsements, and then he saved mine for last. So it showed that he remembered something about me. So
no, that's amazing. And I guess either one of the two, either your American dream story that you want to share, or what the American dream means to you.
Absolutely. So I go to college. I'm going to graduate 2 years early. I did 2 years of college while in high school, and I went to a school with a lot of blue-collar kids up in Prescott, and a lot of those people are still my friends to this day. They're my best friends. They're some of the smartest people I know, and they beat the stigma of having to go to college to actually retain a lot of education. And these people are the strongest, most persevered people that I know, and I think they're the American dream. They're the people I look up to every single day. They work their ass off. They work 60-hour weeks, still go home, have a beautiful relationship with their parents, their loved ones, and they're able to provide for their family. They're able to provide for their loved ones, and they're able to still do stuff that really is meaningful and impact a lot of ministry, a lot of faith. And I think that's the American dream, is not going and relying on an institution like the government, like a college, like any of these places to really supply your American dream. It's really you grabbing it and just becoming that self-made person and really having that moral standing for yourself.
And then there's another 2-week period after that. And I think it comes down to, like, to your point, having the miracle mentality. Because you'll see different people in life, like almost people that it feels like from externally, they got the Midas touch. It's like, man, that guy or that girl never loses. They're just constantly on a winning streak. Must be nice, right? And then you got the other person, it's everything's always happened to them. It's woe is me. You can see them 3 years later, and they're always dealing with different problems, the same problems. And I think really what it comes down to is where your attention goes, energy flows. So if you give your problem all the attention, your problems are going to grow. If you give the solution the attention and you're optimistic on where you're going to go, like, you're going to grow.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me. And I came in there and I had a moment of clarity because the liquidators came in because I was still broke. I didn't know how I was going to start the business. And they're like, David, all the open merchandise, we need you to get rid of pennies and a dollar. And my light bulb went off. Like God just, it was like I didn't even have a chance to thought. I'm like, what if I made it easy on you guys and I just bought up all the remaining inventory? So they agreed. I took the last $7,000 in my name out of my 401k, bought up all the inventory from every Circuit City store within 4 hours of me. Started an eBay business while I was trying to start my insurance company, just to fund it. Filled my living room to the ceiling, sold all that merchandise online, paid off my debt, caught off my mortgage, raised the minimal capital to start that business, and we scaled it to a $22 million operation that we then exited. Wow. And I don't share that to, hey, look at me or impress anybody, but it's more to impress upon people, hey, if I'm not special, if I can do it, like you can do it, he can do it, anybody can do it. But we're not teaching that and instilling that to the education system, that sometimes what's framed as the impossible can be possible in life. And why do you think that is? Because when you look at it, any successful person, success leaves clues. There's a lot of very similar, I guess, genetic makeup to that journey. Yeah. But when you look at all the things and the fundamentals that they had to learn, not in school, but through the school of the hard knocks, it's the exact opposite of what's in our education system. Why do you think that is, coming from it not too long ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the education system, I mean, especially with these public universities, instills a sense of complacency. So they want you to do all of the, pre-required requisites, follow this life that's supposed to be this one set timeline. And then if you jump off of that, you're going to fail. That's what they instill in you. So they keep you happy with complacent, and they just keep you at this certain level of stillness in your life that doesn't allow you to have a hardship to get out of, like what you had, right? They'll protect you at all costs from any type of outside influence. You see it with a lot of the DEI stuff. You see it a lot with this stuff that really just boils down to. Exactly, yeah, right? And so when you see that on a college campus, you never see these kids that are allowed the ability to fail. And when when I see people that don't go to college, like my friends, they failed in a lot of things, but they triumph from it 3 times stronger, especially when they have a lot of issues in their own life. Parents get divorced, other things happen. College tries to remove you from that human natural experience when you're younger. And if you don't have that in your human nature, then you're going to become a very weak and frail person. And that's what these institutions are built to create at this timeline, right?
No, absolutely. And I think we're already starting to see a shift, right? So since the election, I mean, you probably feel a little bit lighter, a little bit better. I think everybody does. Everybody can breathe a little bit better right now in America. Oh, yeah. But before that, you did something that was pretty courageous, right? You stood up against the woke mob. You stood up against the establishment in a time that was unpopular. Tell us what made you deep down want to do that, because you could have done what a lot of people do. They put their head down in the sand, or they take the path of comfort and the path of least resistance. Yeah. But then there's some people that just draw a line and they stand on their ground and their principles. And that sounds like what you did. And I'd be curious what led to all that?
Well, they say with your faith, the first book you should read out of the Bible is Revelation. And Revelation, there's a lot of fight. There's a lot of grit, to really fortify your resolve for Jesus and for God. And so I think when it comes to protecting our students, protecting our younger people, you can classify them as a vulnerable sector, especially with a lot of these institutions that are coming after the younger people because they're vulnerable. They don't have a huge moral foundation. They don't have a huge backing financially as well. So then you see a lot of these fights, and that's the difference between a lot of people, is they want to run away from these fights.
Yep.
But if you're a man of faith, if you're a true young person of faith, you want to run at those fights. And
you can wake up and put your armor of God on.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Through him, I got it right here. With God, all things are possible, Matthew 19:26.
Absolutely. Like when you have God behind you and you know what fight to pick in his name and his glory, it becomes extremely easy to know which fight you need to take, and running head on into the fire really doesn't become that difficult. In fact, you feel comfortable in that fury. You feel comfortable in that fire. It feels like you're getting doused with water in the summer heat, honestly, when you know that you're fighting for something that's truly in his will. So,
no, I love that. That's great. And what do you have to say to maybe people out there? They're in that place where they couldn't find their voice, or they struggled. What's maybe one first step that somebody can do, especially now when the tides are starting to shift, that they're maybe of the same belief systems of you, but they've been staying silent because of that, that the optics of the woke mob, the woke majority, and all that's out there?
Yeah, I would say, being silent is being complacent to what's happening. And so a lot of people don't understand that concept. They think if they're being silent, they say they're fortifying their own resolve and what they believe in, but that's truly not the case. It is impairment that you get out there and you actually fight for what you believe in your own consciousness, because like you said, there are a lot of people that are silent, and the number one message to them, I think, is where it starts, is when they start going to ministry and start going to church. That's when the light switch begins to flip, and it flips extremely quick for them. And you see it a lot with these organizations like Turning Point and Turning Point Faith and some of these other ones, where when they integrate a faith arm of it, it really flips that switch for them to be able to get into these battles. And like I said, it feels like a dousing of water because they know it's the right thing to do. So faith above all else, I think, is the thing that really has to get hit home for a lot of these silent people. Yeah.
What do you have to say to them of where they can start and how they can start making an impact?
I think a lot of younger people need humility first and foremost. I think being humble, humility to other people is the number one thing, because politics gets the rap. It's a very dangerous, dirty game, and at times it definitely can be. But I believe that if you show humility and you show that humbleness in everything that you do, no matter if it's, if you're starting your own business, if you're talking with your own friends and family, if you're having a divorce in your life, if you're having a breakup with your parents, I think being humble and humility to other people, bringing that spirit of humility, I think is the number one thing.
If you could wave a magic wand and change 1, 2, or maybe even 3 things like in our education system that could leave a ripple effect for decades to come and leave a legacy for you, what would those things be and why?
I would say the number one thing that could really change is when there are abuses with policy on campuses, that we really go out to legally repercuss them and actually hold them accountable to the policies that they set on the students, and legally get in there and challenge it. Like, hit them head on, spear, full force. You need to battle, throw your head into the fire. I think that's the number one thing, is we need a lot of legal backing, because they can break their own policies but not have legal repercussions to it. And I think once we start attacking that battle first and foremost head on, I think we'll see these college campuses actually become a bastion of learning again.
But I think there's a lot of, we got to be careful, right? Because freedom is fragile, and people out there have the false sense of security that we won the war, but we didn't.
Yeah.
We won the battle, but the war is still yet to be won. If everybody just goes back to, hey, you know what? I can take it easy now. I can relax. I can kick my feet up. I can stop fighting. We're just going to wind ourselves back up 4 years from now today.
Yeah.
So what do you got to say to the kids that are out there, the youth that are out there, in terms of their duty, obligation as an American, to make sure that we don't go back? What do you think that they can do to continue to hold their ground and continue to shift the landscape of America?
I'd say to a lot of these younger students, fight for the kingdom in heaven like you do on earth, because a lot of these students will fight for the kingdom on earth 10 times over what they will fight for the kingdom in heaven. And I think when you see the switch of that fighting for the kingdom in heaven and where you go after this life, you start caring about everything that's morally right, morally good, and morally acceptable for our country start flowing into that kingdom of the afterlife when you go to heaven. And I think once we start doing that, our country becomes a way better place, especially on these campuses. Once you start integrating faith into these faithless places, you see just resounding results that really just show that we're fighting for a kingdom bigger than just America. We're fighting for the kingdom of heaven as well. And they're very intertwined once you start fighting for the kingdom of heaven.
If you could wave a magic wand, like you had executive power, like our president, and you could do maybe 1 or 2 things that could shift or shape the landscape of America for eternity, written in the stone like the commandments, and that would be your legacy, what would those things be and why?
It's a hot take, but I get rid of the executive order, because I think when it comes to our Congress and our government, that the executive order has been abused for the past 3 or 4 presidencies, and even before that. We've seen troops being sent overseas with executive orders. There's certain limits and caps on it, but 7,500 or whatever the cap is, lives, American soldiers' lives, matter just as much as each soul that is in that 7,500, and they shouldn't be sent over at the stroke of a pen. They need to get congressional approval. So I think the executive order going would lead to a lot healthier discourse in our Congress, because our Congress, that they're wielding the power of our budget.
Yep.
And that's the number one thing that they focus on. You never hear bills that actually get stuff done, like helping our homeless veterans or anything else. They fight on appropriations for about 2 or 3 months, and then they just kind of fight on post office.
It's because the system's backwards, and they're
Yeah.
actually getting rewarded by not curating homelessness because they get another budget the next year and the year
Yeah.
after that and the year after that
Yeah.
to keep doing things wrong.
Yeah.
It's like we're misincentivizing everything in America. Last but not least, our infamous question, what does facts over feelings mean to you?
Facts over feeling means faith over fear. It's the same boat. It's the same exact thing. When you have faith, you have facts, and when you have feelings, you have fear. And that's what happens a lot, and I think that's what it truly means to me.
No, well said, and thank you so much for being on the
Thank
show.
you
It's
very
been an
much.
absolute pleasure.
It's been a
I appreciate
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
you.